Galatians 3 verse 4 is a very passionate verse wherein Paul actually declares how true the gospel is. And he uses the truth of the gospel to say something. Let us just read Galatians 3 verse 4. It says, "Have you suffered so many things in vain, if it be yet in vain?" Let me read it again. "Have you suffered so many things in vain, if it be yet in vain?" Now, that is a difficult passage to understand, and most commentaries basically says that that is a sign of hope, wherein Paul says, well, have you suffered so many things in vain? And then he says, if it yet be in vain, means that Paul is actually saying, well, he still believes that they have not suffered in vain. I don't see it like that. I see it a little bit different. What Paul is saying is, have you suffered so many things in vain? So he's saying that you did suffer a lot for the gospel, but the fact that you were persecuted and suffering for the gospel is now for no reason, because you've turned away from the gospel. You are turning away from the gospel. And then the suffering that you went through, the persecution that you went through, was therefore for no reason. Or it was, why did you suffer? You suffered for nothing. And then he goes there and he says, if it yet be in vain. So what I see there is, if they have suffered for a deception, for something that wasn't true, it would have been okay for Paul. That is what he's actually saying there, if it yet be in vain. If you guys have suffered and you've turned away from this message that you believed, wherefore you have suffered, but if that message wasn't the truth, it would have been okay. We can compare it to the following. If the people in Galatia believed that there was a blue polar bear in the North Pole, by which, should you believe on that polar bear, that you would be saved, and they suffered for that and were ridiculed for that, and they turned away from that, then they suffered for no reason, because they've turned away from it. But if it was for such a lie, it is still okay. So what he's saying is, the fact that you suffered and turned away is not a good thing. And it would have been better if what I've preached to you was a lie, but now in this case, it is not a lie, it is the truth. Let me read it again. Have you suffered so many things in vain, if it be yet in vain? So, I hope you can hear what I'm saying. To me, this is a very difficult passage, and that is the way I see that. It's like the Apostle Paul was coming to say, listen, you are turning away from something, you have suffered and now you're turning away. I've basically worked for no reason in this case. I hope it is not going to go on like that, but if this suffering could have been in vain, if it could have been that you have turned away from a lie, it could have been good. But now you are turning away from the truth, and that is devastating.